Good evening and welcome. I am Grayson Mon, Project Manager for the Plaza and Play. I am a park planner with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department for the city. This is an exciting night to have our first public meeting for the Plaza and Play. Thank you for joining us. Please bear with us as we are working to make a virtual meeting as interactive and as exciting as we can, and hope that we avoid any technical issues. If we do, please have patience as we are working our way through this virtual world. I want to introduce our project team. From the city of Raleigh, we have Kate Pierce. With Michael Van Valkenburg is Hillary Archer. She is the project manager on MVVA side. We also have Missy Album with 313 Creative, our engagement consultants. Nick Smith is also with the city of Raleigh. Max DeRuzzo with Michael Van Valkenburg Associates. Lauren Weldeshofer with the city of Raleigh Dix Park team. Adrian Heflick with MVVA. Tom Sherry with 313C. Mickey Fern is calling himself a Dix Park advocate. He will introduce himself next. Matthew Urbanski with MVVA and Fletch Phillips with MVVA. So with that, I will turn it over to Mickey Fern.
Okay, I think we got this right. My name is Mickey Fern. I call myself a Dix advocate because though I've been in public service for close to 54 years and in Parks and Recreation most of those years, and in those years I've been involved with youth development, equity, innovation, community engagement, and conservation, and Dix is a part of all of these things. I recently retired from North Carolina State University as a professor of practice. I'm now a consultant, but the reason I wanted to call myself a Dix advocate is because this isn't consulting work for me. This is the most exciting thing for me that has happened in my 54 years of Parks and Recreation, to be able to be engaged in creating a space like this that's going to serve the community well. So I've been involved with Dix for about 4 years, and mostly involved with Dix as an advocate. I'm doing work for the city of Raleigh. They have asked me to look into creating a new community engagement process that is inclusionary and participatory, and that reflects the demographics of the city of Raleigh. I just want to say to you that community engagement to me is focusing the collective experience, intelligence, energy, and creative spirit of residents, community organizations, and public servants to create new possibilities and to help the city make good policy, program, and budget decisions. What excites me about this is one of the roles of government, and I'm going to mention a couple of those, are to provide and maintain democratic community gathering spaces and experiences for community building, health, healing, celebration, building community so that citizens discover their commonalities, psychic turf where like people come together to restore their energy, and play. Government also has responsibility to enrich the lives of citizens through education, arts, recreation, and to provide experiences that encourage lifelong discovery, creativity, fitness, and learning. And finally, government exists to create and sustain community spirit, pride, and civility. And Dix does all of those things. It meets all of those things. And that's why I'm so excited about it, and I hope you're excited about it. I want to say that the physical and cultural history of the space and the physical environment and its location provides an unparalleled canvas for the creation of an unprecedented community gathering space. I want to end by talking about the importance of your engagement. You have the privilege to build on the work of thousands of residents who have invested thousands of hours in getting us to this point. The Conservancy, the advisory groups, the professional staff, the public meetings, We met with over, a couple of years ago, we met with over 1,000 young people between the ages of 6 and 12. So you are the first step in actuating all of that planning. We're handing this off to you. There are a couple of things I want to say in closing. As we talk about this, I find that whenever change occurs, it's important to separate imagination from judgment. So we want to get your best thinking, and we don't want to judge that thinking. We just want to get the thinking out. There'll be plenty of time to judge it. We're doing this because we want to create a sense of ownership and stewardship. And we want to make sure that when we're entering into this, we understand that play is not limited to the improvisational, spontaneous play of children, but play is for all of us. So once again, I just want to say welcome. I'm looking forward to this experience, and I'll be back to talk to you just a little bit later. Thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I have enjoyed being involved. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Missy with 3 and 3 Creative. Once again, welcome and thanks for joining us tonight on publicinput.com for this live virtual meeting. This public input site will be our engagement hub for the duration of the Plaza and Play project. So please come back. There are a number of ways to engage after this meeting is over and during the meeting tonight. Before we begin tonight, I want to share a few details about the format for the session and how we'll work. So please keep in mind the event is being recorded and will be posted on this site following the event for anyone who might have missed it. Questions and comments can be submitted anytime throughout the evening during the chat box located next to the live stream. You may also call in a question. To call in a question, dial 855-925-2801, enter the meeting code 8945, and follow the prompts to record your message. This will be transcribed and will be shared with us for review and to share back those answers. Questions and comments will be visible to the hosts only. We will make sure that if we do not have time enough tonight to answer all questions, that we will provide answers to any questions submitted on this site after the meeting ends. Tonight we'll have 3 breaks for live polls and 2 mini Q&A sessions. Please make sure you have your cell phone available to participate in the live poll portion of the evening. As Mickey just said, the evening will conclude with a moderated discussion and Q&A with Dr. Mickey Fern. And a post-event survey will be available on this site starting tomorrow morning. So tonight's presentation is broken into 3 parts. The first part will begin with a project overview and introduction, followed by 1 live poll and a mini Q&A. These questions will be focused on the content presented in part 1. Part 2 is broken into 2 segments in respect to the design ambitions for the project. Each segment will be followed with a live poll and a mini Q&A after the first segment. After the second segment, we'll go into the moderated discussion and the larger Q&A. So thanks again for joining us. I'm going to pass it back to Grayson at the City of Raleigh.
Thanks, Mickey. I'm sorry. Thanks, Mickey and Missy. I want to start by introducing a few things with the project. The city is leading this design process of the Plaza and Play, along with Michael Van Valkenburg's associates as the lead design team. This work is being funded through a grant from the Dix Park Conservancy. The Dix Park Conservancy is the nonprofit partner of Dix Park, and so we are sending them our thanks for this grant and making this work possible. The park is centrally located in the city of Raleigh, with the Plaza and Play site being along Lake Wheeler Road. The project will connect to neighboring residences downtown in the greater Raleigh region with close proximity to I-40. We have several phase 1 projects, the Plaza and Play being one of them. We have, if you start on the very northern edge, a future land bridge, which will go over Western Boulevard to connect us to the Moorhead School and Pullen Park. Restoration of the creek, which runs along the northern edge of the site. And included in that is the landfill. Some enhancements to the cemetery from the Dix Park Hospital. Moving over near the Boylan Avenue entrance are 3 stone cottages, which will have future renovation. And the chapel is currently being renovated in partnership with the Dix Park Conservancy. We anticipate that it will open early next year in 2021. Another phase 1 project is the Lake Wheeler multi-use path. It will connect the very eastern edge of the park down to our neighboring area of the State Farmers Market. And then you see here in blue the Plaza and Play area of the park. There is a lot happening in Raleigh, and I'm going to talk about a few of those things. One is the current planning for the Western Boulevard BRT, which is bus rapid transit. We are also working in partnership with other city departments on a future connection to John Chavis Park. The Dix Edge area study. During the master plan, we recognized that the park is going to continue to spur changes, and City Council dedicated money to the Dix Park area study. This Edge study is getting started as well, and we'll have a series of listening sessions later this month. It will be creating a land use plan and making streetscape recommendations for the area study. And please visit the Edge Study Area Project for more information, and you can sign up to receive updates on that. And then I'll also mention that Healing Transitions is near the Plaza and Play. They are working on expanding their site, and the State Farmers Market recently completed a master plan and is doing some upgrades to a driveway on Lake Wheeler Road. This next slide, you can see the full area of the Dix Edge area study and all the area that encompasses next to Dix Park. The site that is the Plaza and Play is currently being used as a temporary dog park. Staff is working very hard on finding the next location for the dog park. And the plan is for that to open before construction for the Plaza and Play starts. We recognize and we have been listening to all the things that you love about the current dog park location and are doing our best to accommodate those amazing things in the next dog park location. We want you to stay involved. So we have a few areas to mention. We have a project page on dixpark.org/Plaza and Play. There we'll have all the project documents and information. We also have a feedback hub. This is an online interactive site. This is where you're viewing this meeting now. It's publicinput.com/Plaza and Play. There we will have surveys and various ways to engage. And then also the Dix Edge area study, which is raleighnc.gov/dix.edge. And so if you're interested in following and participating in the Edge study, we hope you will visit that site. So now I'm going to turn it over to Fletch with MVVA.
Great, thanks, Grayson. Hi, everybody. I'm Fletch Phillips. I'm a landscape architect with Michael Van Valkenburg Associates. And sorry I can't be with all of you in person tonight, but I'm going to talk quickly about kind of a quick overview of the project, the team that's working on it, the schedule, and a brief overview of the site. So the team Like I said, I'm from MVVA. We're the primary designer on the project. We're a landscape architecture office, and working with us is a team of about 20 sub-consultants, ranging from experts in structural engineering to playgrounds to lighting. And these three circles at the top right of the diagram here are making up what we call the core team. And as Grayson mentioned, that's run by the City of Raleigh, Parks Recreation, and also engineering services. And the third member of that is the construction manager at risk, who's going to oversee the construction phases of this project. In addition to the core team are what we're calling advisory groups. And so there's a huge number of people dedicating their expertise and their time to making this project a reality. The design resource team is made up of members of city staff from every different department. We also have a community committee, a leadership committee of about 12 leaders from the city, and then of course the public, who we're going to engage with at several different moments throughout the process, including online and in events like this. So we want to look quickly at the project schedule. So today we're at the very beginning of schematic design. We're at this where this pink bar is on the left side of the diagram. And this project's going to run in a fairly traditional design sequence. We're going to run from schematic design to design development to construction documentation, each phase getting significantly more detailed and construction oriented as we move along. And at the end of that roughly 22 months, what we're going to be handing over to the city is a package of construction documents that enable them to begin building the project. So in May 2022, MVVA will be completing construction documents so the city can begin building the Plaza and Play project. So where we are today, October 2020, is the very first public meeting. No design work has been done. We want to make sure that first thing we're doing is listening, talking about ambitions for the project, what we want to see take place here. The next public meeting will be in January, where we'll have the first round of drawings put together, and we'll start to really look at the initial concepts and ideas. Again, getting feedback, listening from both the event and also the online surveys and online polls. And then finally in April, as we get into more detail on construction, we'll present again. So now looking quickly at the site, many of you know it today as the dog run. There's beautiful existing trees. It's right along Lake Wheeler Road. It's actually one of the only places in all of Dix Park that you can see into from the outside of the site. There's an existing house called the Buffalo House that we're working with a restoration architect to restore. And if we go to the next slide, this site is about 12 acres. So to put that in perspective, this blue shape in the center of your screen is a plan of the site. And that's put at the same scale as several parks from around Raleigh. So if you look at that, to kind of imagine it to the local context, it's about 3 Nash squares, or about half of John Chavis Memorial Park. So while we're talking a lot about Dix Park, the 300 acres, this very first phase is important to keep in mind that it's actually a 12-acre project. And we're talking about what can fit in there and what we can really take advantage of in this unique site in this first phase. So the next slide has, this is an image from Lake Wheeler Road looking into the site. And Hillary Archer, the project manager from MVVA, is now going to tell you a little bit about how we're imagining or can imagine the future of this place rooted in the foundation that the master plan set forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fletch. And thank you all who have tuned in tonight with us. This is a very exciting milestone and moment for us to get to. My name is Hillary Archer. I am an associate and landscape architect at Michael Van Valkenburg Associates and the Plaza Play Design Team project manager. I had the honor and pleasure of being part of the team who worked on the Dix Park master plan. And we'd like to take a moment right now to acknowledge how the 3 principles in particular of the master plan have a stake in the success of this project. So the first principle is to build from what is here. And this really stems from the idea that the qualities for any great park grow out of the site and its context as it exists already. And with Dix Park, we all know that this includes a very rich site history, as well as stunning views as shown here, unique natural areas, giant trees, and a very advantageous proximity to downtown Raleigh. As a hospital, the site was intentionally closed off at its edges, and this is especially true at our site, as you can see here. And so the second principle of the master plan is to open up and connect the park to Raleigh, but also beyond. And to do this really requires improving two important things: access and a sensibility of invitation. And for design, what that means to us is creating welcoming and easy to navigate entryways for all forms of arrival and transportation, but also cultural links by diversifying the types of activities that can occur here, as well as the groups and institutions that might host events or programs at the park. So the third principle and another key ingredient to making a successful park is not by trying to find one perfect thing to do here, but rather a mixture of bold features and meaningful experiences, memorable experiences. And this stems from a genuine intention to increase the chances for everyone to simply enjoy themselves and to come together and to keep coming back, actually. So as landscape architects, we can help make that possible by focusing on creating a balance of areas for things like passive use, such as relaxing in the shade of a tree, with areas for active use, while also maximizing conditions for things like enticement and inclusiveness and safety, as well as figuring out ways to truly offer something for everyone. So at 308 acres, here we have the Dix Park Master Plan in its full build out. And this truly is a once in a lifetime opportunity to create an amazing public space in the heart of Raleigh. So no pressure, right? And there are 6 overarching layers or landscape themes that, when puzzled together, compose what will be the future park. And I'm going to quickly just go through those. There's the creek along the top that integrates a restored rocky branch into the rest of the park. The meadow that expands the big field that exists today into an even bigger space for natural escape and major events. The grove with its distinct natural character, its gorgeous trees and rolling hills. The valley with an amphitheater for performances. The ridge with its restored historical hospital buildings, and finally the gateway at the bottom, which contains our site, the Plaza and Play. So when we're working on a design like this, we're really thinking very carefully about big moves like where do we move earth and where do we put a pathway. But we're also thinking very specifically about what are the sorts of places that we're making and do they make sense for the Plaza and Play. And the primary goal of this project is to build a new primary entrance to Dix Park. But as I said earlier, it's very important to focus on a mix of bold features and maximizing experiences. And the master plan envisioned the Plaza Play as a place that's not just an entry. So when we're talking about the Plaza Play, what is the vision? So it will have things like gathering spaces and areas for small events. People of all ages and abilities and cultures to be curious and have some fun together with things like water play to cool off in hot summers, imaginative play. And I want to note that as much as kids, adults and teens have a right and need to play. Spaces for public art and cultural programs, places to grab ice cream or coffee at the renovated historic house, iconic elements like an interactive water feature or a grand civic plaza for year-round use, both day and night. Practical things like a bus drop-off and parking, cookout zones for after-work happy hours or birthday parties, and of course, lush shaded gardens with paths for getting from A to B, but also just strolling in nature. So these are the types of elements that the master plan has set out for the Plaza and Play. And we want to hear from you about any particular priorities and interests throughout tonight. And on that note, please get ready because it's time for our first live poll.
Hi, everyone. So we're ready for our first live poll. In order to participate, please have your cell phone ready so you can go ahead and pull that out now. Go to the next slide. So to answer the polls on your phone, you are going to text the code Plaza Play 1 to the number 73224. The first poll question, which we're looking at now, will be texted to you. And I'll read that now. So how would you like to travel to the plaza and play? 1, walk. 2, bike. 3, drive. Or 4, take the bus. So you may reply with up to 3 selections in one text message. So you can send back a couple of numbers separated by commas to the message that was sent to you. We're going to take a couple minutes to let responses stream in. And while we're doing that, we'll go to our first session for the Q&A.
Thanks, Missy. We're going to take a few minutes, and we've got a couple of questions to put out to the team and to the city. The first question comes from our pre-event online survey. A member of the public, JRW5, asks this question. I'm most concerned about the number of invasive vines and other plants and how they've affected the park's aesthetic, habitat, and ecology. Will Plaza and Play include landscaping with native plants that support the natural habitat and the value of the park?
Thanks, Tom. And I'd ask Matt Urbanski also to join us to help answer this question. But I think, as most of you know, the Dix Park site has a long history, and there is a lot of open space, which our parks team is taking care of today. One of the principles of the master plan really was to bring native plants back to the site. MVVA, during our master plan process, suggests that the site really had been denatured over time. And so one of our goals with this project, as with the whole park, is to reintroduce a lot of native plant material back to the park, which I think will be an amazing addition to the Plaza Play project. Matt, if you have anything else to add, please jump in.
Kate, you didn't leave anything for me. You're so good at learning everything that we're doing. So that's really, you really got that right. And we've been out and about all across the state learning more about native plants and making our lists and finding nurseries and sources. So anyone that has ideas about that, give us a note about it, because we're always looking for new ways to find plants. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate and Matt. We've got time for one more question during this segment. This question comes from Jose in our live meeting, who asked this question. Given the location of the Plaza and Play area immediately across from Fuller Heights and the city's vision of a park for everyone, what is the timeline to create direct access from that neighborhood to Dix Park? And is the plan to include a traffic light at Grissom and Lake Wheeler Road?
You know, that's a great question. And I think one of the beautiful things about this project is that it is directly across the street from a neighborhood. And it's one of our only areas where the park's actually at grade with a neighborhood. And so I think a lot of you may have noticed a couple of years ago, we actually took down the outer barbed wire fence to really speak to that notion of opening up and connecting the park to the community. During this process, we will look at the road network. We will look at key intersections. We will look at how people are moving to and through the site. I don't know which roads will have stoplights yet, but that is something that we will definitely investigate and address during this design process. Because what we want is everyone of all abilities and all mobilities to be able to access the park safely, however they so choose. So that will definitely be part of this design process.
Thanks, Kate. We've got a lot of poll answers coming in. We can take a look at those now. So we are seeing a lot of folks who are interested in driving, walking, and biking, and just slightly less who are interested in taking the bus.
This is all really great to see. So my name is Adrienne Heflick. I'm a landscape architect also with the MVVA team, and I manage the design team for the Dix Park Master Plan, and really excited to be here tonight. So I'm going to be speaking a bit throughout the night to these live polls and how the design team is going to incorporate feedback we hear from events like this one into our design process. So for this first poll question, as Missy was saying, we're seeing some interest here in driving, walking, biking, slightly less for the bus. And also to reiterate Kate's point just made very clearly, we know that all 4 modes of travel to the Plaza and Play project are going to be essential. What we're going to do with this information in terms of driving and walking is really making sure as the design process continues that we're recognizing the importance of driving and walking most especially. So when we come back to you with some design ideas in the new year, we're going to be really clear about how you can drive, how you can walk, and how you can bike and bus too to this really great place. So.
Thanks. We can turn it back to Matt to share some insight into the design ambitions of the project.
All right, Missy, thank you. Hi, everybody. So if you were involved with the master plan, you've seen my mug before. I worked with Adrienne on that process and look forward to getting to see you all in person again soon. So we put together a list of design ambitions that really are born out of the process of doing the master plan, born out of the outreach that we did then and the ongoing outreach. So of course, these ambitions will be refined and over time, including from this meeting. And also, the beginning initial studying of the site. So basically, just to break it down into 4 categories. First, thinking about a gateway. Like Hillary said, this is really a gateway to the whole park, or one of the maybe 12 gateways that we'll have. How is this site rooted in the history of the site? What can we do here to kind of acknowledge that? This wants to be a regional draw, but it also wants to be a fabulous neighborhood park. So we'll talk about those 2 ways of looking at it. And then that final idea that we really want to make a gathering place for everyone, and what can we do to make sure that happens. So starting with the gateway, I love to think about the gateway as a front door, and we all have noticed, and even on our own houses, we make a little bit of an extra special, even in the simplest house sometimes, a little bit of an extra special effort to welcome people and invite them in and show them where the gateway is, where the front door is. And so it's a great metaphor, I think, a front door and the special effort you put in. We're going to be thinking about where people are coming from and the different means that they might be coming from, which might mean the different means are coming from different directions. And so we will have to be thinking about all those different ways. Next, please. And we will be designing for all modes. We will be designing for people coming from buses. We will be designing people coming on bikes, by car, and on foot. So that they will all be high priority for us. The site, we saw this picture already. The site is really fantastic and has some great opportunities and some challenges. First, Lake Wheeler comes to grade right here and brings us right in, and it allows us to kind of move right into the park. One challenge is the power lines that are here. Another challenge is the kind of exposure to the road, both of which are not extraordinary challenges and things that we can incorporate into the design. An idea of a welcoming gateway, like as shown here in this smaller park, can be really embraced with vegetation. A unique vegetational expression could happen right there at Lake Wheeler, and that's something to consider. And then as you come in, having deep sight lines that build anticipation and a kind of a sense of discovery, but also make it clear where the safe way to go is something that we'll want to incorporate. If we think about multimodal paths bringing people here, we might want to think about different moments for different modes to enter the space, so there's not, so we could avoid conflict and people getting, you know, run over by bikes or something like that. As we think about elements in the park, we might think about civic elements that might elevate the mood. Now, this is a historic element in Central Park, Bethesda Fountain. We're not necessarily proposing to make an antique style fountain, but the idea of something that really brings up the mood of the space is an important thing to think about. And then iconic elements that you remember. One thing which is also going on here is how can the nighttime use of the place be thought about and become an important part of the way we design it. It's of course cooler at night in the summer in Raleigh, and that's another thing to consider. And there could be moments for dynamic displays that change. So this is an example in Brooklyn Bridge Park of a kind of creative artistic bench installations that happened all throughout the park and really brought people, especially art lovers, but people who just loved how wacky these benches were. And then you might want to think about, or we will want to think about, including spaces that allow people to extend their stay. I mean, one of the kind of mental constructs we love to use is how can the park be a little mini in-town vacation for people? And so they don't just have to go for an hour and get bored and leave, but what can we have places to eat and relax and rest and do all the other things that you might want to do to extend your stay. And then we're going to be thinking about parking and the landscape and how much parking is needed, but then how is that balanced with how much parking the landscape can handle, and bringing those two together in a harmonious solution. We love to think about including elements, especially in the play areas, for all ages. One of my favorite are these basket swings, because although there's one person in it right now, lots of times I've seen adults and even grandparents and little babies all together at the same time. So it's fun to find pieces where people from all ages can use. And then we put a huge effort into making sure that we are including people of all abilities. And this is really, on a certain level, a technical challenge and takes a lot of careful study and measurement and planning and design in order to make sure you're doing that. But we aim to always exceed the requirements on all of those measures. So now on to history. So the site is rooted in a theme of wellness, and that was highlighted by the work of the Legacy Committee, who has encouraged us to think about it in that way as well. And if you think about it, it's sort of perfect because the hospital, as it was originally conceived, had a program that included the landscape in the patient therapy, both through agriculture as well as kind of recreational space. And there's just beautiful moments about the way the building related to the landscape, as you can see in the central picture, and a beautiful portico, and also just the kind of wonderful activities like this beautiful picture of the Easter egg hunt that's happening over in the Grove, which still exists as totally intact landscape from that time. We have the Opperman firm with Joe and Langdon, husband-wife team, working on our historic structure. Langdon has been doing interviews of people that have lifetime experience with the site and with the house, and so she's really making a kind of fantastic record of their experiences and stories. And Joe is really very renowned for his skill in restoring architecture. And so we want to find a creative way to integrate this structure into the life of the park. And really integrate the historic narrative into the park as well. The trees on this part of the site, as well as many other parts of Dick's Park site, are amazing. Many of them aren't actually as old as they look. They just grow really, really well with that North Carolina clay soil. North Carolina has a really profound horticultural legacy. There's many beautiful gardens, many of which we've gone to see, and we're looking for other suggestions of where you would think we should go out and get a look. So please submit those. There's a really amiable climate for growth. There's great soil, there's great rainfall, and it results in a kind of lushness that can't be matched. The climate, although the plants love it, does get kind of hot in the summer sometimes. So how do we mitigate for that in our design? How can we cool people off? Also, the climate is kind of warm at moments in the winter. And really, how can we extend the use of the park and not just think of it as a summer use park, but really a year-round use park? All of that tree growth kind of led to an industry of woodworking and furniture making in the state that is an important legacy and ongoing legacy of the state, and how we like to think about how can we incorporate that into the expression of the park. Here in Tulsa, we actually, this is in our gathering place in Tulsa, we incorporated standing dead trees that we recycled and reused and turned upside down as sculptures, and we'll find a way to do something unique for you as well. And then in terms of artist collaborations, what we have a history of doing, and these are all collaborations that we've had in our landscapes going back 20, 25, almost 30 years. We look for artist collaborations that create spaces and places that invite interaction and engagement. And so that's a way that the art becomes very accessible and, you know, not on a pedestal per se, but something kind of engaging to the public. So with that, we are going to have another live poll.
All right, everyone, go ahead and take your cell phone out again, and you will be texting to the same number that you interacted with in the first poll, but text the code PLAZAPLAY2 in order to receive what's going to be 3 poll questions. And these will come to you in succession following your answers. So I'm going to go ahead and read through those 3 questions. We'll take a couple minutes for the poll results to come in while we're taking Q&A. So the first question you're going to receive reads, what type of play are most important to you? Nature play, water play, imaginative play, or playful objects? And you may text up to 3 selections in one message for your response. So we can go to the next slide to look at the next poll question that will come in. And that reads, what landscape elements are most important to you? You can text 1 for grand entry, 2 for deep sightlines, 3 for a civic fountain, and 4 for iconic elements. Again, you may select up to 3 choices and submit those in one text message. And the third and final poll for this series asks, what Plaza and Play elements are you most excited about? 1, gathering or cookout spaces. 2, multimodal paths, parking and access. 3, a new entrance to Dick's Park with civic fountain and plaza. 4, innovative play for all ages. 5, a new park pavilion with bathrooms. 6, the rehabilitated historic house with concessions. 7, public art and or cultural programs. 8, a bus drop-off. Or 9, gardens. And here again, you may select up to 3 choices and submit those in one text message. All right, we are going to take a few questions again that have come in through the live chat, and you may continue to submit those questions, and we'll look at the poll results after that. So I'll shoot it over to Tom and Kate.
Thanks, Missy. The next question we have is coming through the live chat. This is a question from Ken, who asks, given the interest in driving, I worry that some park space will be sacrificed for parking lot space. The Boston Common has underground parking. Is that an option here?
That's a great question. Part of this project will be looking at the different types of parking options that are available to us. The site itself, because of the grade change, could potentially accommodate some underground structured parking, but that's also a pretty expensive type of parking to build. And so those are kind of the trade-offs that we'll have to acknowledge. The other piece is we are looking at where our existing parking exists today, whether that be downtown or maybe some parking available through partnerships with NC State Centennial Campus and shuttles running, for example. So we also agree that we don't want to turn the park into a parking lot, but we know parking is part of our near-term solution for people driving to the park. So all of those questions will be asked, investigated, and hopefully some creative answers to ensure that we are accommodating people who arrive by car, but we're also creating a beautiful park space and not building a parking lot for building a large parking area next to the Plaza Play.
Thanks, Kate. We have a couple questions that have come in related to kind of basic access and amenities and the timing of their implementation. So Amy shared the following insight and question. I've enjoyed many events hosted at Dorothy Dix Park in the past. However, I think it should be priority to get permanent, accessible public restroom facilities sooner versus later. So for Plaza and Play, will there be high quality public restrooms accessible to all? And we also have a similar question, different subject, but related to amenities. Matt asks, will there be sidewalks catering to the adjacent neighborhoods in place prior to Plaza and Play opening, such as Good Street, Biggs Drive, and Lake Wheeler?
So I'll ask Matt to join us again. So the first question, we hear you on the porta potties, and right now that's kind of the best we can offer, but I know nice restrooms will be accommodated in the future design of the Plaza Play. Matt, I feel like parking and potties always are two of our top questions, but if you want to share any experience MVVA has with adding those type of amenities, that would be great.
Well, I think, first of all, making people comfortable, and which includes bodily functions, is very important. We have to have places to get out of the sun. We have to have places to cool off. We have to have places to, eat, and, picnic tables to put your food down on, and bathrooms are really important. And we don't know where they would be, if they would be in a historic structure, but we also have the Kenneth Hobgood Associates architects on our team, and they are excellent architects and will help us think.
People to the space safely is a priority. I know the Dix Edge study will also look at road and kind of connectivity from the Fuller Heights Carolee neighborhood in and around the site. So I think between those two efforts, we should have some ideas about how to better connect the neighborhood. At this point, we don't have any of that identified, but will be definitely something that we look at through this project and the Dix Edge study.
Great. Thank you, Kate and Matt, for those questions and answers. And we are going to take a look at our poll results now. So in regard to what types of play that are most important, we are seeing a lot of interest in nature play, slightly less imaginative play, playful objects, and water play. So thank you for responses there.
This is all really exciting to see, and especially the nature play coming out on top. We know how important gardens, plants are going to be to the design of the project. So to have that layer in a playful way is going to be excellent. So the next question.
All right, what landscape elements are most important to you? Looks like iconic elements is coming out on top.
That makes a lot of sense. We've heard throughout the master plan engagement process that, Dix Park as it exists today is a little bit hard to understand. You don't quite know where the main entrance is. There's just a lot of roads and a lot of buildings. And so I think adding some iconic pieces to Plaza and Play is really going to help orient people and bring a new identity to this part of Raleigh.
And the fourth question, what Plaza and Play elements are you most excited about? A lot of folks are excited about gardens and innovative play for all ages.
That's great to see. I think it reinforces some of the other answers that we just heard about a real focus on amazing spaces with planting and getting everybody out to the park to enjoy a new playful experience.
Great. Well, thank you so much to everyone who participated in those polls. We'll have one more to conclude the day. And now we'll turn it back to Matt to talk about design ambitions.
Okay, so we're up to ambition number 4 here, neighborhood park and regional draw. So at 308 acres, and this being the front door to it, Dix Park, we really want to think of it as being on par with and commensurate with being in the state capital with all the other great features that draw people from across the state. So how can we engage people from across the state and across the region with a kind of destination play area and with the whole park as a element, as an institution in the state capital? On the other hand, and we're not really opposed to that, but complementary to that is really all great parks. If you think about Central Park in New York, for instance, is drawing people from across the world, but it's also a great neighborhood park. So thinking about how the park is appealing to the surrounding neighborhoods and the people that are there, and being able to pop in and pop out for short visits and how it supports their daily life, those are also very important considerations. So when we're looking at making something that will draw people from far and wide, we might want to look creative. We might want to look broadly for creative collaborators. Here at the Gathering Place, we collaborated with a Danish firm to help make these custom-made blue cranes, blue herons that are a play feature, and all the play features were custom-made, but with people that we found from all over the place to do that. So sometimes you want to go far and wide. And when thinking about the play, though, I think one of the interesting things is to think about how other people might kind of be interacting with it or not interacting with it. In this case, one of the interesting features that we incorporated into the Gathering Place was this path here allowed people to move from one of the main parking areas actually over and through the play area to get to the other parts of the park, to the main water feature, the pond, and things like that. So we could think about how all the different users are integrated into the space, including the ones that aren't going to participate in the play. One way to make strong local connections is through materials and through craft. These features here at the Gathering Place were made out of native local stone, and they were inspired by natural features that were nearby in Tulsa and that we learned about through the public outreach process at it was called Chandler Park that people sent us to. And then they were built by local craftsmen. So it really kind of built that local connection. You could think about a park as a place, a series of places or settings, but it's also, for many people, a series of events and activities. And so we will be working with the city and with private nonprofits to think about how to integrate spaces that can support and facilitate inspiring programming. So in thinking about a play space, for instance, this one in Brooklyn Bridge Park, there's things that you might not immediately come to mind, like a sense of intimacy, a sense of comfort, a sense of where the parents would be and where would they be comfortable. In other words, a convenience. Those are also as important as sort of the play features and what the kids are doing. And we're going to always be looking for small opportunities for small scale, intimate moments. I love this picture and the fact that they remembered to bring a tablecloth for their picnic table. And then finding moments to create playful elements that might inspire engagement in novel ways. One thing we like to think about is can we utilize elements that enable people to customize the space for themselves? In this case, with the use of movable furniture, so people can kind of get it exactly to where they want it with the view, or get it so they could put their feet up or whatever it would be. So those kind of customizable elements would also be fun to think about. And how can we take what might be an ordinary element like a wall and think about the ways kids might imaginatively interact with it, thinking about discovery or challenges that could be integrated in subtler ways into an element. And we're always looking for ways to kind of make some surprising interpretations of nature. So this is a kind of a rock outcrop, quote unquote. And of course, it was a made sculpture, in fact, but made with natural stone, which gave us an opportunity to for complexity and for texture, and also for a memorable detail, and really makes the place stand out in your mind. Okay, and now onward to the civic gathering place for everyone. So the name Plaza in Play implies the possibility of combination. And given that we have 12 acres and a lot to do, next please, we want to look at some combination landscapes. The idea of doing a couple of different things in the same space, kind of in a sympathetic way. So one of our favorites is the Washington Square Park, which is in Greenwich Village in Lower Manhattan. This is a beautiful traditional square, but it has a civic fountain and plaza around it and a big formal gateway. But it accommodates a kind of play. The fountain actually is a play fountain, but also the kind of civic space with places for musicians to play. Both coexist together in the same space perfectly. This is a funny one, but a good example. This is our Pier C Park in Hoboken, New Jersey. We actually made an island. And in doing so, we wanted to really appeal to the widest array of people possible, but within a small space. So we made this kind of introverted play space, which you can see here. And then balanced it out with this extroverted overlook space out here. So a lot on this little island is happening. And one of the neat things in close proximity, and that is one of the neat things about landscape, is you can get things, almost incongruous things, to happen in very close proximity to each other if you're careful about the way you lay them out. In Teardrop Park, also in Lower Manhattan, we made a completely fabricated but very naturalistically inspired landscape. This was made actually on landfill. And so to many people, it feels like a piece of found nature. But then, next please, throughout that natural feel, we were able to punctuate it with playful elements that kind of appear suddenly in the landscape. So this water play area, for instance, is one of those moments where kids can come and push a button and turn on the water. In the gathering place, again, we really push the idea of incorporating or intertwining play and green space or garden together into a play garden where the two really play off each other. And this is just right after opening, so the planting hasn't even grown yet here. So we get this richness of a moment's very green experience and then other moments really zany experience. Another one of our favorite combination scapes is the Crown Fountain. And this is on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Architects Crook Sexton and the artist Yama Plenza made this fantastic civic space with a beautiful, just a beautiful civic space. Has a beautiful beauty to it, and but then also very playful. And then here at Brooklyn Bridge Park, we have both kinds of levels of activity happening, where we have the kind of fun water play area and then the relaxing flower field, all within a space that's really not any bigger than our site. So I just want to conclude on this series of slides that are about what a park is for. Parks are really funny things in a way, because they're trying to do all kinds of things for all kinds of people. If you think about it, you know, some people like sun, some people like shade, some people want to be together, some people want to be alone. That might be the same person. One day wants to be alone and the next day wants to be together. So how do you do that and at the same time do something that's really kind of specific and memorable? And the thing is, the wonderful thing about parks is that is possible in a park. So a park is a place for fun. A park is a place to get wet and cool off. A park might be a place to unroll a picnic blanket. A park is a place to exercise and get healthy. A park is a place to get away and be a misanthrope. A park is a place to have a wonderful cookout birthday party. A park is a place to get zany with your friends or even with people you don't know. A park is a place to come together with others and see an artistic performance. A park is a place to see natural materials in new ways. A park could simply be a place to take your newborn out, to get out of the house, relax. Park is a place that might draw you out of yourself and into a new imaginary world. Park is a place to play cards with some of your campmates. Park could be a place for exciting nighttime use. Park is a place to just get out and walk the dog. Park is a place for joy. And this is actually a picture of Dick's already, but a park, if we get all of those things right, a park will be a place for all. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Matt. So we are now at our third and final live poll. To participate in this poll, please text the code Plaza Play 3 to the same number that you've been interacting with so far, 73224. And that question will be sent to your phone. The question reads, what is the most important thing to add to Dick's Park right now? So here we're asking you to respond on a sliding scale, and you might select one response, the numbers 1 through 5, with 1 being places to play, 2 being between places to play in a balance, 3 being a balance, 4 between a balance and places to gather, and then 5 is 4 places to gather. So please take a minute to respond to this poll. Please note that if you've had trouble at any time during the polling segment, we will be posting the poll questions for anyone who was either with us tonight and was unable to respond, or for anyone who missed the meeting and decides to watch it virtually. You can respond to the poll questions as a survey, which will be posted on publicinput.com and go live tomorrow morning. So don't feel like you're missing out. We will be taking all responses into consideration. Okay, so we are getting some responses in now, and I'm going to share that with you all. And it looks like a balance is coming in strong for what people want to see at the future of Dix Park. We will keep accepting results, but just in the interest of time, we are going to move into the moderated question and answer segment that Dr. Mickey Fern will lead us through.
Well, welcome back. I'm going to offer some things, and some of them are going to seem a little redundant based on the presentations that were just made, but I think redundancy sometimes is important. George Bernard Shaw says, we don't stop playing because we grow old because we stop playing. Among the greatest things about living in America are freedom and choices, which are both essential elements of play. And getting people to understand how to operate powerfully with their freedom and powerfully with their choices is partially what play is about. I'm really proud to be an American, and I'm talking about things that transcend sex and race and disability and all of those things. I'm really proud to be an American when certain things happen. When we're celebrating together, when we're laughing together, when we're playing together, when we're collectively engaged in addressing and solving problems and challenges, when we're healing together, when we're doing service together, and when we're self-actualized. And you notice together was a word in common to most of those statements. COVID has reminded us of just how important gathering is. Gathering is critical, always has been critical to democracy. In addition, as a country, we're experiencing issues around increasing incivility and decreasing trust, and play is an effective antidote to increasing trust and decreasing civility. There are certain things in our lives that all of us need and we all need to stay connected to. Those things are nature, kinship, a feeling of safety and security, and staying in touch with our creative spirit. And this space provides not only all of those things about us doing things together, but those four things. Our lives seem to become, as adults, so serious and purposeful that we forget how to play. And we forget the power of intergenerational play. Relationships, organizations, families, and communities in which there is no play become lifeless, uncivil, and dispirited. Play is leisure activity. Play assists us in learning and development. It can be undertaken by individuals or groups or children spontaneously or part of a planned activity. Play allows us to learn, to use creativity while we develop our imagination, dexterity, our bodies, our cognitive abilities, our emotional strength, civility, intimacy, kinship. Play is important to healthy brain development. It is through play that we engage and interact in the world around us. Play spaces are not created to be static. A space must be able to accommodate our current conditions and circumstances and interests, but also be able to evolve and change according to the evolution of our communities. And finally, and this was said before, that this space that we're talking about is the entry place for the park, and therefore should set the tone for the user experience, wherever the people come to the experience and whatever they do. So I just wanted to share that so that we would continue to consider all of those things in the development of the initial phase of the project. So thank you very much. And I think now, I think we're going to have some questions. Nick, do we have questions?
All right, this is one of those areas where We're having a little technical difficulty, so we're going to keep going, and please bear with us. We're doing our best not to have awkward radio silence.
So I'll start.
Okay.
So Mickey, we've heard a lot about the idea of this place needing this balance of plaza and play, it being our first project, but it is our first project and there's going to be, you know, almost 300 more acres for us to do things with. How do we manage, in your professional opinion, how do we manage the expectations of this project and not trying to do everything all at once, but balancing that with wanting to do something exceptional in this first phase of work, knowing that we have all this other space?
Well, I don't know if this is your answer to the question, but Dick's was a fine space for me when none of this was going on. There, the Easter egg hunt where 3,000 people show up, right? The dog park where 3,000 people show up. So the park is still a great important place for improvisational spontaneous play and for building the community and for bringing the community together. And so therefore that doesn't stop, and we still need to stay engaged in those activities, even though this is the first phase. So I don't feel like, as a citizen, I don't feel like I lose anything by this being the first phase, because the space has been so meaningful to me in so many ways that and it will still be that. So we will still be able to program some of the spaces in the park to do the things we have historically done and do some other things. We don't have to wait for the park to be complete to begin to understand how the space can respond to the challenges that people have in our city. That's what I think about.
I just want to say thank you for saying that, Mickey, because I forget sometimes myself that we have so many acres of nice space. And one of the interesting things on the Plaza Place site is its adjacency to the Grove. And so if we can make a strong connection to the Grove in this project, or initiate a strong connection, we're kind of buying all of that too as part of phase one in a way, because it's already there. And that's a great site and it's really wonderful. So that's a great point to make, that there's so much going on and we could connect things in people's experience and physically, then we could leverage all of those moments.
Yeah, and I would also like to say, and my wife would hate this, but in certain, we've been together for 42 years. In times when we get a little crunchy, Dick's and walking my dog has been the most important thing I could do to get my mind back into the relationship. I mean, it does those kinds of things regardless of what we do.
It's a good point. We all know what you mean.
I think Tom has some questions from the public that you can throw out.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. We've got a question from Frank who asks, is it possible to create a place that has a spectacular and exciting play space while at the same time honoring North Carolina's natural environments, materials, and beauty? And he goes on to say, could the play space be constructed from or resemble natural materials such as wood, rocks, grasses, hills, instead of man-made materials like colorful plastics?
Matt, I think that's all you.
That's a man after my own heart, for sure. That's a great point. It's one of the funniest things about play, if you think about kids, if you had kids, you know this, like a kid doesn't hardly need anything to play, right? They'll play on the banister and they'll play on the staircase, they'll play in like a flat room with just a carpet, they'll play. But meanwhile, people design play spaces and they're completely horrible, right? And no fun at all. And lots of times it's just a piece of plastic in the middle of rubber. And it's just not that, it's just, there's a big expression of all kinds of things that aren't important to kids, like making sure it's not going to wear out and making sure they're not going to get hurt. Those are not important things to kids. So I think you're right about the natural materials. It's a big emphasis on what we're talking about, both incorporating, purely natural materials as well as just wood and stone and metal and in their pure expression. So that's a great point, and and something we'll really take to heart.
I think that also too, if you look at a lot of the parks that MVVA has designed across the nation, you see a lot of integration of natural materials and elements of the place. So the stonework at the Gathering Place in Tulsa, that is of Tulsa. So one thing I really appreciate about their design aesthetic is that they're not bringing Tulsa to Raleigh. They're not bringing Brooklyn to Raleigh. They're going to do something uniquely Raleigh and uniquely of North Carolina, which is something that I'm really excited about in the project.
Thanks, Kate. We've got another question here. This question comes in from Amy. And her question is, I'm most concerned about safety at Dix Park. So for Plaza and Play, will there be a lighting system throughout that provides a comfortable and safe environment? And will the space also have a safety system to alert authorities if an issue arises? These are both essential for making the park comfortable for users beyond daytime hours and for evening and nighttime use.
Matt, I think that's also a good one for you to jump in on.
Yeah. Well, very important points, all of them. You know, there's lighting from the perspective of safety, and you know, one of the things that we've done in our parks is not just light the paths, which is your typical solution, but we kind of cast a kind of moonlight glow over the whole space, not a harsh stadium glow, but like a moonlight glow, and that kind of, it's got a magical transformational quality. It makes it feel almost like you're in another world. But being, you know, having that nighttime light on in certain times in certain places until, you know, whatever hours we determine is a good time, can really make nighttime use feel really nice. So that's one thing. But also there's artistic expression of lighting too that we could think about as well to kind of elevate your mood and that. In terms of monitoring and safety, Kate, I think maybe you better take a first shot at that.
Sure. I think, you know, especially as Dix Park evolves, part of our effort is going to be this idea of how do we maintain and how do we operate it. I think something that Mickey said earlier is that for this place to be successful, people need to feel safe in it. People need to feel like it's a welcoming space. And so there will always be that opportunity to, whether through staff or other means, make sure that this is a safe and welcoming space. I think this idea, and Mickey, maybe you want to, this idea of individual safety or feeling comfortable in the space, especially as kind of the world changes, is something that we're very mindful of in the design of the park.
Yeah, and I just, go ahead, Mickey.
Well, and certainly what we see is that if people are distracted by concerns for their own safety, it's impossible to enjoy the space. If you're looking around and concerned of who might hurt you or what might hurt you, or you've just made up things, it's impossible to enjoy the space. So we need to make the space as safe as we possibly can make it.
Yeah, agree. I just wanted to add one thing here, and that is as we're thinking about this as a space for a range of ages and how it could be potentially be a space safe for a young professional to come outside of what may be viewed as hours for children and families, that these questions or that these things with lighting and safety kind of expand the hours that people can be here, and it's an inclusionary of all ages.
But also understand that safety has to do with people's familiarity with the recreation experience. And people who have not engaged in nature-based recreation experiences may be afraid just because they can't predict what's going to happen in those spaces. So a part of it is helping people understand how to enjoy the space and how to reduce the amount of apprehension and fear they may have coming to it. I've heard people who talk about feeling unsafe because it was a mental institution, and there are all kinds of things that went on there and all kinds of scary things. So part of it is about working with citizens to dispel the things that would cause them to be afraid of it.
Thanks, Mickey. We're going to I think we've got time for one more. We've seen several questions coming in around culture, the socio-cultural history of Dix Park and how that might play out here at Plaza and Play. Including, what kind of design elements and programs might celebrate the park's history and legacy, and more specifically, will Plaza and Play create an opportunity to express and translate the area's social and historical context in a way that could be nationally significant?
That's a really great question. And I think everyone probably has a different response to that. I will just acknowledge that this site's deep history is something that the entire city team and design team is top of mind with everything we do. So Matt, I'll throw it over to you first to talk about kind of the incorporation of this cultural history in the landscape. And then Mickey, maybe you can round us out with the idea of the importance of that to the success of the park.
Yeah, I don't have a fixed idea about how to do that yet. We're at the beginning of the process. We're open to suggestions. One train of thought leads to thinking about, would it be interesting and useful to have an artist help interpret historical meaning on the site in some way that is not like a kind of history plaque or something like that, something more unusual, something more memorable, maybe very creative. So that's something, or can we collaborate with an artist on something like that? So that's a way of thinking about it. The thing that I think we have on our side is that whole thing I said about the legacy of the site in terms of its connection to the landscape, and the kind of the wellness connection and the healing qualities of the landscape for people. And so I feel like we can tap into that in many different ways, whether it's just through the detail or through activities that happen here. So we're thinking about it, and open to any kind of ideas. But I don't know, Mickey, if you have any thoughts on that also.
Well, I think much like the National Park Service, we have an opportunity to tell a story about the evolution of human and civil rights in the city of Raleigh and in the South. And so therefore, taking the lessons from the plantation, from the Native Americans, from the mental institution, to what goes on there now, taking those messages and using those messages to help Americans learn how to live powerfully in American society. When I was the deputy director of the National Park Service, I got invited to Chattanooga, where I was born, and I was at Orchard Knob, and they had these young kids in a day camp, and they took the Black kids and said, we want you to be the Confederates, and they took the white kids and said, we want you to be the Union Army, and they actually had to act in those roles. And the kids weren't so screwed up that they couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It would be impossible for me to do it, but the kids did it. And the learning process was just amazing, but it was play. So play isn't just tied to apparatus and physical exercise. It's sometimes tied to simulation and creating opportunities that through metaphorical experiences and play, we learn things about ourselves and our community and our country. And I think that's a possibility at Dix that doesn't exist many other places.
I think that's a great point. Another item is that as a park, we've joined a network called the International Sites of Conscience that look at sites with deep histories and legacies and how to move from the past to the present and how that informs what we're doing in the park of the future. So building on that network and learning from other sites that have these deep histories and legacies, I think is something that we'll continue to bring into the future of the park.
Well, that's great. Right. I think we've unfortunately run out of time for questions. There's some other great ones, and I would just like to thank everybody who participated through the live chat this evening, as well as all of you who are here or even not here that participated in the pre-event survey. And as Missy mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of ways to engage And we'll cover those. Grayson will cover those in a moment here. But thanks again, and we're going to move to a close. But please stay involved with us as we go forward.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I want to send a thanks to our team that was involved in this. And I wanted to point out a few ways that you can continue to stay engaged. After the meeting, there will be a post-meeting survey on publicinput.com/Plaza and Play. We have a few other feedback activities there with a drawing activity for kids of all ages. After this meeting, we will have Q&A responses. So we recognize we weren't able to get to all the questions. So check back next week. We will be posting the Q&A responses to all the questions. We have 2 more future meetings. So our next public meeting will be early 2021. We hope that the next time we meet, it can be safe and in person, because we really look forward to seeing you and meeting with you face to face. On the public input site, we have some activities for kids. And then I just want to say thank you for joining us this evening and giving us your time and creative energy. This is really exciting to get this project going. And we look forward to hearing from you through our engagement portal, through messages, and we hope to see you in person soon. So with that, I will say good night.